Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Shiraz, how are you, my friend? How's everything going?
It's going great, Sifu. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so, how can I say, excited for this episode because I'm going to get to know you just a little bit better. When we consider friendships, right? If we don't invest in them, we can't grow with them, right? So talk to me about your childhood. Where'd you grow up? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? And before the age, I have a bunch of questions here. Before the age of 10, who would you say was your biggest influence?
Oh my God. Okay, so let's go through all that. I was born in Durban, South Africa. Moved to Canada at the age of 3 because my parents were escaping apartheid. And I grew up in and around Toronto. So my biggest influence, is that you said?
Biggest influencer in your life? Parents, friends,
That
teacher?
would be my dad. My dad was the biggest influencer because my dad, he was a doctor. He was a genius. He had a photographic memory. He used dad jokes long before the term existed, and so it was all about having fun and enjoying life. And he was a really cool role model. And besides him, there were 2 of my teachers in elementary school that just saw my potential and nurtured them. One of them let me do advanced work in class, so I ended up not skipping a whole grade, but getting a grade ahead in a bunch of subjects, the science-based subjects. And the other one taught me about reading is actually fun. So
there you go.
I didn't know it was fun until he gave me some books and he's like, try these. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like plot and just action, and these, especially the ones with kids, so I could relate. And it's like, oh, they're on these adventures. And after that, my parents would wake up and find me sitting on the kitchen floor with a bowl full of snacks, reading a book. And it was like, did you stay up all night reading? And I'm like, yeah. And I never got scolded. Right? Because they're like, he's learning, he's enjoying, just let him do his thing. Right? So.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Hey, Raquel, thank you for joining us. Good morning from Chicago, she tells us. So tell me, and a couple of things that you said about your dad were really fascinating when you said them. One of them that stood out for me is you said he was a genius.
Yeah.
Would you expand on that?
So he had a high IQ and he had a photographic memory. So he used to talk about how the other people in university would get annoyed with him because he just flipped through the manuals, right? And everything would stay in there, and then he'd go do the exam. So he didn't actually have to study and memorize things. And he was into puzzles and brain teasers. He loved to keep his mind exercised. And so that got me into that too. And I was like constantly doing brain teasers and word scrambles and crosswords. And I just got so much joy out of it. And to this day, you know, if I want to pass some time, it's going to be some logic puzzle where I can just solve things because it feels really good. I get like a fix out of that. So
love it. So do you play chess?
I can play chess. I haven't played in a while. I used to play chess. And the thing I found with playing chess was my brain works in a different way than most people, in that when I'm playing you, I'm not playing based on my skill in chess. I'm playing based on who you are. So the more
Right.
times I play, the better I get at playing you specifically. But then when I go to another person who might be worse than you, I'd lose the first 2 times because I don't know them. I have to learn how they think.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So you accommodate basically you accommodated them, so you played at their level instead of your own level, right?
It's not that I play at their level. I realize that my brain tries to put me up against the person specifically and not play the game.
Mm,
So I would lose initially against people because I'm still trying to figure out what they do and how they think.
right.
And yeah, and so then once I started to see the patterns and where they go, my game would steadily improve against a specific person. But here's the crazy thing is that you could then take me to another person and that would break the whole cycle. So if I go back to the first person, it's like I'm starting over again.
Mm,
it's I don't know
that's very
what goes on
interesting.
out here, but yeah.
I love the fact that you're trying to figure out how they think.
Mhm.
But so many of us don't do that, right? We only arrive with our thoughts, and we sometimes don't even care what the other person's thinking because we
Mhm.
only have our thoughts. It's my way. So many people live
Yeah.
their life. It's my way or the highway, right? So yeah, thank you
Uh,
for that, and the fact that you were sitting at the kitchen table reading all night, or on the floor
yeah.
even reading all night,
Yeah.
and you, it was that specific teacher that really got you interested. That's fascinating because if he didn't do that for you, you may have become eventually interested, but not right away.
No, no.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm so grateful to have him and that he put me on that. I remember when he gave me the first book too, like because I didn't know books were good, so I'm like, why is he giving me this? Why does he hate me so much? He expects me to read this book. Right?
That's too funny. That's too funny. So moving on, how was school for you during this time? Because your brain is slightly different than everybody else's, maybe dramatically different. How were you
Yeah.
treated by the besides the teachers, by the other students?
For the most part, I was treated like just a normal student. Like people recognized I was smart, um, and they could really see I functioned in a different way, especially in the sciences. So math, physics, chemistry, I was always excelling. Um, and it wasn't until college that people really started to click in that I functioned differently because I mean there was a different dynamic in college, and I could also do more. So a normal course load in our college was 6 subjects. And at that point, I realized you can take more. It's
Mm,
like high school, there was a curriculum, pick these and fill up your schedule. So I was doing a 9 subject course load
mm,
and I was tutoring people and I had a job. And it was just like, this is the level I want to work at. And people would look at me and go, you're insane. But it wasn't a burden. It was just like, now I can finally work at capacity.
right. It's almost, and I love that because if you think about the 4 mile rule, right? At one
Mhm.
point, nobody can break it, right?
Yeah.
And eventually somebody said, I don't know the difference, so let me just go break it, and then everybody followed suit. Did other people say, "Hey, you know what? I want to do what he's doing"? Did anybody else follow in your footsteps?
Um, not so much that they were fascinated and they're wondering how I can pull it off, where I find
Mm,
the time, where I get the energy. And this is the one thing I've learned is the if you love what you're doing, it energizes you.
sure does.
Right? So I was doing more of what I loved, so I was getting more energized. Whereas most people were going through college saying, I just need to get through this so I get a job. So it wasn't energizing at all. Right?
Mm,
There was even one course where we created a virtual business. So they had the computer system set up and you put in all the parameters for your business, and then the teacher would give us scenarios that come up each week and put it into the simulation,
Right.
so that we had to navigate, building stuff and distributing it, and we had to deal with our shareholders and like the whole business thing. And I was just in the zone. I was playing with this. And when we got done, we were supposed to do a presentation on our businesses. And when I was doing the presentation on mine, and we did it in groups, I was there with a few other people doing it. And I said, I think the thing that made this the most fun was, and then I heard the whole class groan and like, fun? Like, what are you talking about?
See, that's your entrepreneurial spirit right there, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like you were in a group of people who wanted to work for someone and be told what to do. Right? And usually that's
For the most
a
part,
lot of. Yeah. Do you stay in touch with some of those people?
No, actually, I haven't talked to a bunch of them. We stayed in touch for about 10 years after college, and I think me leaving had a lot to do with it because I was the organizer. One of my friends called me the glue, and so I would say, let's do the class get together, and we'd always have a great time. But then I left to go live in Australia for 2 years, and when I got back, everyone had just gone their separate ways.
So you were the glue. They named you correctly. Right. We're going to get into why you went to Australia, but tell me about the job you had while you were taking 9 courses and tutoring. What was that?
Oh, that was retail. I was selling clothes. It was a store called University Class. So university sweatshirts and T-shirts and stuff from all over the States and Canada.
Nice.
And yeah, and it was just something to get some extra money in. And I met one of my best friends there. She was the manager of the store, and we hit it off. So even after I left, we were friends for years.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
I know that you said it was just to make money, but did you learn any valuable lessons that you may still have today working in that retail store?
Yeah, actually, with I worked at a carpet store. I worked at an electronics store. And one of the biggest things, I guess two of the big things, number one, establish rapport with the client. Right? You don't just come up and try to sell them. you gotta have that conversation, make them feel at ease, and then qualify them. So I remember, especially at the carpet store, it was like I remember people would come in and they're like, "Look, we need to get a rug," and I'm like, "Oh, where is it for? Okay, what room? What's the other furniture like? Okay, what's the feel you want?" And they're looking at me because I'm asking all these questions. I'm not taking them. All the carpets are still behind us. And then finally, I'm like, "Come with me." And I'd go there and I'd pull a whole bunch of carpets out of the way. And I'm like, "Is this it?" And they're like, "Holy crap, that's it." Right? Because I found out from them exactly what they wanted to look like, feel like, and then I knew the inventory.
Yeah. You probably would have been a great real estate salesman, right?
Okay.
Because how many times, people go with a real estate and they keep showing them the wrong house, the wrong house, the wrong house, the wrong house.
Yeah.
And they waste, people's time. And only the ones that know how to do what you just talked about wind up being the wealthiest real estate agents. So you would have been phenomenal. Hey, it's never too late. But so let's move on to after college. What kind of career were you looking for?
So I went to college for computers. I was doing computer programming and analysis. And so the career I want was software development. Ideally, I wanted gaming, but I ended up in corporate. And I worked at Oracle. I don't know if you know Oracle. At the time, it was the second largest software company in the world. And I was there for several years. Then I went on to freelance, and I worked in places like Accenture, Blue Cross, the government of Australia. It was a lot of fun until it got boring. So again, for me, It's about creativity. What can I create? What can I bring that's new into the world? And all those software systems I was helping design, but eventually we had designed so many that they covered all the different areas that people needed software for in the business world. So then it just became, here's a software package, let's customize it. And I'm like, that's no fun. Customization isn't fun. Creation is fun.
Creation is the most fun. That's why I have a wood shop. I like to create things, build things, right, from scratch. I actually had a gentleman yesterday who worked for Oracle and Promata, and the guy is just a genius. And he went for computer engineering and so forth. Talk to us how you wound up in Australia for 2 years.
I got a call from a friend. She had worked at Oracle in Canada, and she was originally from Australia. She and her husband came here for, I think it was like 5 years. They stayed here before they said, we can't do Canadian winters. We just can't. And so they went back to Australia. And then one day she calls me up and she said, hey, there's a project manager position opening up at the place I'm working. Are you interested? And I'm like, excuse me? And she goes, we'll make sure you get the visa stuff done. We'll take care of everything. I've recommended you. They're interested in working with you. And I'm like, I'm in. So I got a 2-year visa. I went down there. And then I found out the project manager job she gave me was actually hers. She was leaving the company.
Oh, my goodness.
She's still staying in the same city. So we were friends. We hang out and stuff like that. But she basically found her replacement in another country and brought him in.
Smart woman. But here's the good thing, right? She recommended someone that they actually wanted. So that's a smart woman. Absolutely. Yeah. So you also talked that you work for the government.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So the government of Australia, there was the family courts and the federal courts were getting new systems put in and government funded, of course. So I got pulled in as project manager to design those systems. And that was just crazy because I'm like, I'm designing an entire court system.
Wow.
And I actually had a little fun because, and I know it probably never got implemented in it, but when I was designing all the software and some of the pseudocode, there was code in there that if Shiraz ever gets arrested in Australia, the system would automatically acquit him. So
you put that code in?
Put in there.
That's the best code you probably ever wrote. That's great. That's great. So, very creative. Very creative. There's a creativity, right? That's funny.
I'm like, hey, I'm designing it. I don't expect to get arrested. It's not the type of thing I do. But, just in case.
Just in case. Oh, my goodness. That's very funny. And the fact that you even thought of putting that in there, it's pretty incredible.
It's actually a repeat because when I was in high school, I designed the attendance system for the school. They hired me for free as bonus credit rather than go out and pay an actual software person. So in the attendance system, it said if Shiraz doesn't show up, automatically issue him a nurse's note that he was sick that day. And like that was physically in the system. And a few of my teachers knew it. They're just like, they made you design the system. Do what you want.
you get this pass.
Yeah. So I just followed that up in Australia. I'm like, wait, I've done this before.
That's very smart. Very smart. So what you're telling all the computer companies is be careful who's designing, right?
Yeah.
Take a look at the code. But so considering that you're doing this, you're having fun, you went to a whole different country. What was the transition like for you when you actually got there?
To the country?
Yeah, to Australia. Besides the long flight.
Yeah, that was a 24-hour flight. And when I was stationed in Brisbane. When I got to Sydney, I have been awake for 20 hours, and then there's a 4-hour delay on the layover. So it's just, But Australia wasn't actually so bad. They're just more laid back Canadians. Like that's what it feels like. It's like being in Canada, warmer climate, and everyone's just a little more laid back. The the bigger transitions where I worked in college, we had international co-op. So I did a co-op term, 4 months in Germany and then 6 months in Japan.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's where it was culture shock because it's different culture and it's a different language. You got to learn on the spot.
Mm, mm.
So
What was the culture shock besides the language? What was the culture shock in both countries?
In both countries, Australia, both of them have rules, and it's the same here. There are these rules that, as a native, you know, and as a foreigner, you just don't. And no one tells you the rules, but they'll tell you when you've broken the rules.
Oh, yes.
Right? So, for instance, in Australia, in Japan, when someone drops you off at your home, you have to then wave goodbye to them until you can no longer see their vehicle. If you leave and go into the house before their vehicle's out of sight, it's an insult to them and the effort they made to take you home.
Wow.
All right. And so, yeah, the first time I got dropped off, luckily I was with a friend and I'm turning to go. And he's like, no, stay right here. Keep waving. I'm like, what are we doing?
Did you ever find out why that cultural difference was there?
There's so much respect built into the Japanese culture.
True.
So it's shown everywhere. Like in the office, you can't, in North America, we're talking to someone, we'll just sort of semi-lean on the desk while we're talking. Putting your butt on someone's desk is that's an insult. You put your butt on someone's desk. Right? And so, yeah, it's all about respect for the people around you and making them feel comfortable and welcome. And even things like the masks, when you have a cold.
Right.
If you have a cold, you put on a mask to protect other people around you. Right. In North America, they have this thing like you need it to protect yourself from other people. But no, the culture is the exact opposite. It's respect for everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was neat learning it, but it wasn't without pitfalls because there would be times where just something simple like someone said, Shiraz, we heard you're good with computers and databases. Can you help us out with this problem? I said, oh yeah, that's what I study. That's my expertise. I'm happy to help. That was wrong. If you say I'm good at something, you're bragging. The proper response was, I'm not that good, but let me see. Maybe I can help. Right?
Yeah, and I love that. That's the beauty of not bragging, and so many people like I'm an expert. I'm the best. There's nobody. Gosh, that gets tiring. Especially, I don't know if you've noticed it, but we see that so often, and people who are below your own position tell you how much they can help you.
Yep.
How do you feel about that? Almost like you don't know what you're talking about, but you need them.
So when someone tells me that they can help me, first of all, if it's after a conversation where we've gotten to know each other, then I'm going to listen because everyone has their insights. And even though I might have much more experience, they could say something that I'm like, ooh, that was a nugget. Where'd that come from?
Right.
But if someone just walks up to me and says, I can help you, then I'm like, no, you're in sales mode. You're not even trying to figure out who I am. You think you can already help me? No.
Well, I believe you're also on LinkedIn, and don't you get 1,000 requests every day for somebody I can help you, I can do better. And it's not even like, hey, let's get to know each other and have a conversation. It's more like, connect with me. Once you connect, boom, the sales calls start coming through. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought you wanted to connect. This is not a connection that I want, right? And you're right when it says it's different, when it's that flavor, if you will. Right?
Yeah. I have a couple strategies that I use depending on how I'm feeling. One of them is to say, well, I do this, and I'm sure you could use my help, and then just throw it back at them to see what the reaction is. Most often, I just politely, no, I'm not interested, and go. But once in a while, when I've got some free time and I'm feeling playful, I'll let a few of them build up, and then I'll put them all in a group chat together and say, you need to listen to this person. They can help you. And then just leave the group and leave them chatting. So,
Love that. I'm gonna use that. That's brilliant. Right? Let them sell each other and leave you out of
yeah.
it. Oh man, God, that's a brilliant idea. I'm gonna have to start doing that. Yeah. When
I always
you
wonder what happens the AIs involved and where that conversation would end up going is that different AIs are talking to each other. So,
now you gave me another way to have fun. Thank you for that. And anybody
you're welcome.
listening, let's try that together. when you were in Japan, how was the cultural difference if you were invited to someone's home and they offered you food? And maybe you already ate
Oh,
and you're full.
oh no, you eat. You eat.
You eat no matter what. I agree. Yeah.
That's it. They've invited you. They're hosting you. You eat. And then the thing I found about drinking too is you never pour your own glass. You always pour for everyone else, and you wait for someone to pour for you. Right? So yeah, it's crazy. Once you get used to it, like and embrace that. Wow, this is all about serving others and respect. You're like, this is such a cool culture. Like
It is.
it seems so weird.
It's actually the way I wish we all would live, right? Where we respect one another, where we are there for one another, and we support one another always.
Yes.
And then Raquel says, like in a Latino home, come hungry. Come hungry. So if you know you're going to somebody's house, don't eat 2 days before, especially if you're going to Raquel's house. Because she's going to feed you, right? Italians are the same way. But here's the thing, in Chinese culture, because I've done Chinese Kung Fu, if you, for any reason, even don't like the food and you say no, my gosh, that is such a harmful thing that you can do to your own invitation in the future or the way they look at you. It's so disrespectful, right?
Yeah. And it's
How is it? Go ahead.
It's that connection in different cultures. You have to learn what that culture does. And sometimes it goes against who you are. In Finland, the greeting of "I want to be your friend" is "here's a cigarette." And I'm like, thank you. And then try to find a way to keep forgetting to smoke it. Right?
Yes. When it's a negative one, you have to find different ways. But when it's positive, it's okay. One of the things that I always found very interesting, my ex-wife's mom was German, and you could never walk into. She sat with the queen and all these different and royalty and so forth. And she would always say, when you sit at the table, this is the only way you can sit at my table. So she would lecture everybody before they even sat at the table how to eat and all these things, right? And it was great advice. But she would never allow anyone to enter her house with their outdoor shoes on. Right.
Yes.
In Chinese culture is the same for me and so forth. So I was already used to it. And when I went into her house, she was like, "Oh, wait, you already took your shoes off? I didn't have to give you a lecture." So I was like, "No, I understand." But that is such a unique, I think, way of living where we are truly respecting every aspect of how we live. Right.
Yeah.
How many of those do you still hold dear to yourself?
How many of those what
Cultural differences that you adapted, if you will?
I don't know if I hold them. It's basically, in this culture, I go by the rules of this culture,
Mm.
and so that way people can relate. I do have these moments of, I like it better in Japan the way they do this than they do it here,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Agreed, agreed.
And I've also found like there's certain things that have been ingrained in me that it's just the culture seems to have moved on, but I still function from that because just that's the way I was raised. Like if I'm on a date, I will open a car door for a woman, and
Mhm.
they always look shocked now. Like, what? You've got the clicker that opens automatically. You don't need to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's incredible. Um, Even now, when somebody's a passenger, I open the door before we get in the car, and they
Hmm.
look at me a little weird, and I'm like, well, if it's a lady, I'll go, uh, "My lady," and to make them a little laugh, right? Or if
Yeah.
it's a young man or sir,
Mhm.
and sometimes they look at me like, "I'm a guy. Why are you opening the door for me?" I'm like,
Hmm.
"Just to make you comfortable," and it
Yeah.
it throws them off. And then the conversation is going to go, well, why did you do that? I said, well, I wanted you to feel comfortable. And, I saw that you had something in your hand or whatnot. And I said, because maybe nobody else does it for you. And I wanted to be the first one. They're like, oh, thank you.
No,
So
nice.
it's the little things, right? That matter or even make an impression, right?
It is. Yeah. Because everyone's going to notice all those little things that you do, the little characteristics. And like I said, that people are going to remember how you make them feel.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're getting close to a holiday, and everybody is we start seeing this holiday start to appear in the summertime. And this holiday is Christmas. And
Mhm.
tell me about the name you use on Facebook and why.
Oh, Santa Shaw's.
Yes,
So,
I love it. I love it. I just now I don't know why how that came.
so the unfortunate thing is Facebook has changed the way they do messages now. But probably like 8 years ago, I noticed that when Facebook sends up those notifications, if I like your post, it would say Shiraz likes your post.
Mm,
Now it says Shiraz Babu likes your post. So it's a different dynamic, but it just used to use the first name. So one year I was getting around Christmas and I changed my name to Santa because I now realized if I like someone's post, now it says Santa likes your post. And
that's cool.
the feedback was just insane. It's like, this is the best. Santa loves my post. Santa commented on my post. Santa.
That's incredible. That's fun. See, you always find a way to have fun and to
Oh,
impact the lives of other people. So yeah, thank you for that. Right.
thank
See,
you.
now I know why you have it. When the first time I saw, it, I was like, I gotta ask him. I said, great, he's gonna be on my show. I gotta ask him because I'm like Santa Shaz. What does that mean? So yeah, so now I know that Santa likes your post. I love it. I love
Yep.
it.
Yep.
What are some of the takeaways that you have had with the full life that you've led? I know you've had some adversity, you've had challenges, like all of us have. Yours may be unique because of your skin color, your ethnicity, um, like mine, right? People don't know my nationality until they ask me. But for you, it's become apparent, and it's something that. And thank you for sharing that with everybody at the CLA. And if you can just give us a brief as to how you were challenged by your coach to overcome it.
So when I was talking to my coach about the racism I was experiencing, he challenged and said, it's not actually racism. It's you're using racism to create a situation that actually benefits you. And just for the context is I just kept getting stopped at borders, and I actually got people to admit, yeah, they do a black check at certain borders. And so I'm getting caught up in these. But what he pointed out was it wasn't about the getting stopped at borders that was the problem. It was I wanted to feel love from other people. And I had figured out unconsciously that if I tell stories about getting stuck at borders, people go, oh, and we feel for you. We wish this didn't happen to you. And that felt like love. So I had to keep figuring out ways unconsciously to get stopped at borders so I could keep telling stories so I could keep getting love.
Wow.
And that was one of the big lessons I learned. There's a lot of people that are creating struggle because other people are cheering them on. And even though they want to get out of struggle, their mind says, well, if I get out of struggle, they're not going to cheer me on anymore. There's no need for them to cheer me on because I'm successful. So stay stuck in the struggle so you can keep getting loved.
Oof. That's so powerful. Would you say it's basically the same thing for people who are in an abusive relationship?
There's different reasons for staying in it. And some people, if they start life with parents that are abusive, when we're kids, we look around and say, what does love look like? And we look to our environment. So if your parents are abusive, then you're like, oh, that's what love looks like. So therefore I must go into an abusive relationship.
Wow.
Some people do something that they feel is wrong and they feel they need to be punished. So then they put themselves in an abusive relationship. And then once people are in an abusive relationship, it can become a habit and addiction, a bad one. But what happens is when you think about going to a great relationship, your mind and body don't know what that's going to be like. And the crazy thing is your mind would rather take a bad known situation than a completely unknown situation. So that's why a lot of people stay stuck in those relationships.
One of the things that I love the way your mind actually solves problems. I can see it, and it's very apparent to me. So I'm assuming that this is how you help people who have a situation, a problem that they can't get out of, or that they're stuck in because they don't see the brighter side. They don't see their own actions sometimes. How do you work with people who are maybe stuck or afraid of the next step?
For me, there is a lot of experience having done this for 10 years where people are saying certain things that I'm like, oh, I know exactly what's going on. However, there's a woo element in this because there's a connection to source, to God for me, where information just comes through. And so someone could be telling me a story that I've heard 100 times, but then I'll just get the sense of, no, this is different. I need to talk to them about this specific thing, not the thing that everyone else is going through. And when I listen to that intuition, when I listen to the voice of God, then they'll go, oh my God. Like, yes, that's exactly it. You've just nailed it. No one's ever put it to me that way before. And then we get this huge shift.
Talk to me about God for a minute. When were you first introduced? Did your parents introduce you to God, the religion, or just him as an entity, if you will? Talk to me about that.
We never really talked about that. Like, all of it was through television, through like Christmas movies, and talking to other people. And it wasn't until I was 12 years old that I didn't even realize, like, I didn't think of myself as Christian, but we celebrated Christmas and stuff like that. And then my dad's like, okay, our guests are coming over from South Africa. We're going to give you a crash course on being Muslim. And I'm like, what? He said, well, you're Muslim. I'm like, we are? Like, what?
Incredible.
And he had told the whole family that we were still practicing Muslims, didn't expect them to come visit. And now a whole bunch of them were coming to visit.
Oh my.
So suddenly we had to learn how to pray. We had to suddenly we have to only have halal meat, and then I praying 5 times a day. Like, you're 12 years old and suddenly you have to pray 5 times a day. I'm like, are you crazy? So then I got exposed to Muslim religion. I've had exposure to the Christian religion, and then in my 20s, I started getting exposed to spirituality, and so this whole mishmash was coming in. And luckily for my dad, he went on a spiritual journey too, because he wanted to find out more. And he just dragged the whole family with him. And we went to all these things, Native American things, East Indian things. And so I got this eclectic upbringing of different spiritual beliefs. And from that, my own beliefs just formed. Because I didn't say I have to be Christian or I have to be Muslim. I'm like, oh, wait, I like that idea, but I like that idea. And so then that became who I was.
Wow. That's it. So do you know why your dad, was it after that experience that your dad said, wait a minute, I got to find my own? Do you know why he went on a spiritual
wasn't
journey?
after that experience. It was a few years after that. But I think my dad, I think there was just this calling in him. He's like, there's something more. There's something I'm missing, and I need to find out what it was. And he eventually started working with this guy, Swami Rama, who was amazing. Like, he not only a spiritual guru, but he let himself be subjected to scientific tests while getting into meditative states. So they watched as the temperature on his hand here went up while the temperature on his hand here went down.
Wow.
Just from him willing it to be. They've recorded him stopping his heart for like 10 minutes and then starting it up again. Like, it's just things like that, because he's like, it's our body, it's our reality, we can do whatever we want. And he was just proving it. He was getting it all recorded.
So let's talk about that, right? Because this episode is called Rewriting Your Reality, or Rewriting Reality. And this is something that you do because it's what we perceive to be our reality, right? Is it based on perception?
Yes. It's all perception. Whatever you perceive reality to be, it starts to become. And
including a lie.
People, yeah. Well, it's not a lie. It's a truth for you. So,
yes, it is. Especially if you're living it.
Yeah. And this is the crazy thing, is that 10 people can be in the same room having that same experience, but all coming away with different beliefs about what just happened or what's happening in the moment. And no one realizes that's what's going on for each person. And this is why you can have, kids raised in the same household, but they're all coming from different perspectives. So they end up being different individuals. They're not all thinking and acting the same.
Including twins, which I've noticed.
Including twins, yes.
I train I have several twins that I train, and they're so different. I mean, they look alike. People confuse them for each other, but man, if you know them, oof, night and day.
That's it.
So how do you help someone rewrite their reality? Because that's a very interesting topic for me, because there are so many people who are, let's put it this way, in the dark about who they are.
Yeah. Because what we've been we've been taught who we are, and we've typically been taught from a place of limitation, not from a place of possibility. And so from a place of limitation, you create problems in your life. And the thing I've found is every consistent problem in your life is the solution for an emotional problem you're not looking at. Because it's all about emotions. Your mind does not care about your physical circumstances. It only cares about how you feel. And when you start to understand that, then you can start to rewrite your reality. So there's one of two things going on. You're trying to get an emotional fix. You're trying to feel good, like me trying to feel love from people through adversity. Or you're trying to avoid emotional distress, trying to avoid guilt or shame or other bad feelings. And the really crazy thing about it is oftentimes what you do to avoid a big emotional distress, like lots of guilt or lots of shame, is to create smaller amounts of it, to remind yourself of how it feels at that small amount. So you definitely don't want to go to the big amount.
Right.
So instead, so to try to avoid lots of guilt, you live in guilt constantly,
Mm-hmm.
which makes no sense logically, but that's how it works.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say that someone who claims to be an emotional eater gives themselves permission when they get emotional to be an
Yeah.
eater, and yet now guilt and shame follow because now they feel guilty because they did eat that pound of ice cream or whatever, and then they're ashamed because maybe of their body. So it all kind of falls into a
It
vicious
becomes such a,
cycle, right?
yeah. Yeah. And so when they eat, they get their high. They get whatever they've associated with it, whether it's love or pleasure or whatever it is. And then they come through it and they go into guilt and shame, and then they come back out of it. And the important thing is to notice which emotion you're in the most, because you have a default emotion. And for something like that, it's probably shame. And so your body looks for ways to maintain a feeling of shame because your cells actually have receptors on them to receive the chemicals associated with shame. So you stay in this place of shame, you finally get over it. Now your cells go into withdrawal. I need to do something to make me feel shame. Let's eat. Now I've eaten. Now I feel guilty. Now the shame kicks in, the chemicals flood, but your body goes, oh, thank God. Right? And consciously, you're like, I hate this life. I hate being an emotional eater. But biologically, it works. What you need to do is stay out of the shame long enough that your cells say, we're not getting those chemicals. They'll put receptors for another emotion, which could be gratitude or happiness. And then suddenly you're addicted to that. Right? And so I used to be addicted to frustration. Now I'm addicted to laughter. Right? But it took work.
That's a better addiction.
Yeah.
And I love what you just said. For anybody who didn't truly listen to it, it's replacing one habit with another, right? Because you can't get rid of a habit because you're leaving a void, right? So we can't leave voids. Our life should not be void. It's got to be full of something, and it's what you put in it. When we consider even the words we're using with ourselves, if the minute we say we're an emotional eater, our subconscious mind tells us when you feel emotional, you need to go eat. You need to go eat these things, right? So whether we like it or not, every word we say to ourselves has an impact because the body doesn't know any better. The mind knows. If you keep saying to yourself, I'm rich, your mind is going to make you do things that the rich people do. I like to eat, caviar or, lobster for dinner. And then you're going to find a way to have lobster for dinner on a regular basis compared to once in a blue moon. Or my 5-year plan is to eat a lobster dinner. And then, 3 years come in and you go, now it's still 5 years. So you'll never get that lobster dinner.
Yeah.
So you see that and you use that to help people. What is it about the way you look at a new client come in? How do you even learn to assess what they're going through?
I just listen. If you create a space where people feel comfortable and safe, they will just let it out. They will just tell you exactly what's going on. And oftentimes they'll tell you exactly what needs to be fixed and not even realize they say it. It is not uncommon for me to say, well, are you willing to step out of this story that this is what life is like? And they're like, that's not what I think life is like. I'm like, you literally just said that. I can play the recording back for you, but it literally came out of your mouth. It's like, I have no memory of saying those words. So,
but yet they said it. And
they said it.
maybe the reason they think they didn't say it is because it's become part of who they are, right? That they created almost like a genetic makeup. If somebody says I'm fat, and in the beginning it doesn't really make sense, but the more they say it, it's once again that reality. It's their reality.
Yeah.
So you're helping them change that through the process
and
through listening.
And just like you said, when you that chemical does not blood. when you start saying the reality, you start buying the reality. And you can even take it to another level, because when you start hearing that from other people, it's actually more powerful. Because that's how we got in there in the first place. Someone says you're fat, and you're like, oh my God, I'm fat. So I used to play this game where I would say I'm awesome all the time. And so, you know, I'd be hanging out with friends, and the waitress would put my plate down first before other people. And I said, you know what, my plate got put down first because I'm awesome. Right. And it, like, they'd be like, oh my God, and they'd roll their eyes and stuff. But then I'd keep doing it. And then something would happen. And I said, do you know why that happened? And they're like, because you're awesome. But they don't realize I'm doing this because now they're programming me over and over. And it became this running joke, but it just kept going in. And I eventually I was talking with my nephew, and I said, you know, your uncle's awesome, right? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, I can prove it. And he goes, how can you prove that you're awesome? And I get on the phone, I call up my friend, and I'm like, you're on the speakerphone with me and my nephew. Describe me in one word. Like, awesome. Okay. And then the next person, describe me in one word. And you can hear the eye roll when they're saying it. Awesome. Well, we went through like 3 or 4 people, everyone, same word. And I'm like, I can do this all day. Can you? And that's what I was teaching him, how to get that mindset so that he can feel empowered, awesome, capable about doing anything.
Yeah. It's it's so interesting that you showed him how, and how simple. And the whole thing of simplicity is people try to complicate simplicity, right? And when you show them how simple it was, one word, describe your uncle, right? Does he now think you're awesome?
He thinks I'm awesome. He also thinks he's awesome. I started teaching him these techniques at the age of 15, and he just manifests whatever he wants in his life right now. It's amazing to watch him.
Let's talk about that. You talk about he can manifest anything he wants. And you taught him how to manifest whatever he wants. Why is that an important aspect, that we have one life, as far as I know, to live? Why is it important for us to manifest what we
want? Do you want to spend this life being happy, or you want to struggle or sad or shame? Like, I think it's a simple question in my mind. You manifest so you can create the life of your dreams. You manifest so you can realize it doesn't have to be hard to do that. And you manifest so that you can show other people that they can do it too. So everyone can benefit from you having the best life possible.
It's interesting. A couple of years ago, I started, when somebody said to me, how are you? I would say it exceptional and getting better every day. And they would look at me. And some people didn't hear the first part, because all they expected me to say fine or okay or great or whatever. But when I said getting better every day, they didn't hear the first part, which was exceptional. And I've had a few people say to me, oh, are you okay? Are you not feeling well? I said, did you hear the first part? I said, I'm exceptional and I'm getting better every day. And I said, it doesn't matter how much better I get, but my goal is to improve myself every day. And so I started saying that to, because I also run a martial arts school, some of the young kids, because I teach them manners. When they walk in, they can't just walk in. They actually have to say hi to people. And at first they're like, I don't want to say hi. So they put their heads down. And I'm just, well, they have to get their card to go to class. And so they have to say hello to the person at the front desk. And they have to go, hi, how are you? And they have to wait for a response. And then the person will ask them, how are you? And so a lot of the kids are learning how to just communicate because so many children lose that. But if I'm at the front desk, they'll say hi to everybody else and they look at me and they're afraid to say hi to me. And then I'll say to them, how are you? And they'll kind of like put their head down. They'll go, I'm good. And then they walk away. And then I go, great, have a good one. But the ones that go, how are you? I'll say exceptional and getting better every day. They look at me. And now they're saying it. So slowly I'm helping them, teach them. There's one particular kid, he's 10 years old. He comes in, he had trouble saying the word exceptional. It was a hard word for him to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday he came in and he said hi to the front person at the front desk. And he looked at me and he goes, Sifu, how are you today? And I said, my usual. And I said, how are you? And he said it crisp. And the smile on his face was so beautiful.
Nice.
And then I said, congratulations. He goes, congratulations. I said, you're believing it. And then he smiled and he went into class. And I think that's where it truly is, because to manifest it, you have to believe it, right?
Exactly.
Just like nephew.
And just to the point you're making, the people that couldn't hear it didn't believe it. That's why they only heard getting better, because they're in this place of it's not good, we have to try to get better. So exceptional just didn't register in their minds.
Right. It's interesting how people even greet each other. I'm sure you notice a difference in Japan, in Germany, in Australia, and Canada. We all greet each other slightly different. I'm a hugger. I love to hug. But I know that certain people I can't hug, right?
Yep.
And in certain cultures, it's a kiss on either side of the cheek. So what was it like when you first went to Australia, greeting somebody, Germany, Italy? I mean, not Italy, Finland, and Japan.
Japan, again, is the one that it's more formal, but with the younger generation, there's hugs. So that's all good.
Really?
Yeah. So, and if there weren't, I created hugs. Like I would get hugs when I left.
But a lot of bowing, right? A lot of bowing, mutual respect.
Yes. Well,
How
and
about
here's the
Germany?
thing about reality. When you're in a reality of I get hugs, you create I get hugs, right? And it's the thing about manifestation is when it's matter of fact, everything manifests easy. When people are trying to manifest, it's actually making it harder for manifestation. And the time this actually clicked in with me the most was I was in university and a bunch of us were out, and we had the dorms where there's the male dorms and the female dorms and stuff. And so a bunch of us from the male dorms were out with a bunch of girls from the same female dorms. And at the end of the night, we were about to leave. And so we were saying goodbye. And the girls said goodbye and waved to the others. And then I'm like, okay, goodbye. And they all came up and gave me individual hugs. And the rest of the guys are like, how come Shiraz gets the hugs and none of us get the hugs? And the girls just like, there was this moment of like, huh. And then they're like, well, he's huggable. But I realized in that moment is my story is I always get hugs when we say goodbye. And they just were in that manifestation of my reality. And the other guys didn't have that same story.
Yeah. It's a story you tell yourself, right?
Yeah.
to help the manifestation.
It was because it was natural and effortless. And that's true manifestation, where it's just effortless. It's normal. It's just the way things are, that I got my hugs. and they were in this place of, do we hug? Do we not hug? What's the dynamic here? But for me, it's like I always hug. That's just what I do.
Yeah, yeah. Usually, you and I are very much alike in that respect, because I always say to somebody when I first meet them, if I feel like there's something, and maybe they put their hand out, and I'm like, I like hugs. You want a hug? And they're like, yeah, bring it in. I'm like, okay, cool. But if they keep their hand out, I'm like, okay, we'll hug. We'll hug later, so they can expect the hug later. I'll shake your head now, but later we're going to hug, because we're going to get to know each other. We're going to like each other at the end of this conversation, hopefully. Right. So I want to give you a big virtual hug, my friend. This was amazing. Thank you for all the insights that you've not only given me, but the audience. I'd love to give everyone a chance to get to know how they can work with you. You got 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Tell us what's going on. Also, you have something special coming up. You're welcome to share along.
So if you want to get to know me, go to energeticmagic.com, and there's events coming up. I have a free event every month called Ignite Your Success, and it's just an hour-long workshop where I'll talk to you about manifestation, and I'll actually laser coach a few people. The big thing coming up is December 31st, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. We are doing Release, Reset, and Reignite Your Magic for the new year. It is an event I've been doing. This is the 11th year now, and it's about pulling all the crap that's in you, that's accumulated over the last year or even earlier, and getting rid of it that afternoon so you can go party on New Year's Eve and start 2025 fresh. And people that have attended it have reported way better years as a result of that event.
Can I interject? I saw you do that on a call that we had, and even though you didn't have the bandwidth of time to be able to do that with everyone, I think everyone watching had a takeaway, and anybody who can participate in this thing. And I know you've had great success with it, and everybody can go to the website is across the running across the ticker at the bottom. Go to his website, sign up for it. I guarantee that you will walk away with great insight, even on yourself, and take notes, right? Take notes, because I think getting the reality of who we are, and even escaping our own reality, if it's not the right one for us, will help with what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, and people that have come that I did not actually coach during that session still report changes. One of my coaches, he didn't even know what I did. He said, I'll find out, I'll go to his event. And I didn't talk to him personally, but he had such a big shift at the event, he made an extra $4 million the next year. So you don't have to be the one in the hot seat. You can just watch and get huge transformations.
Let's call it a love seat.
Okay, love seat.
Because
transformation seat.
That's it, right? Because people may feel hot because people are going to be looking at them, because they're going to talk a little bit emotional stuff, but it truly is love, because you come from a place of love, and you're showing how they can shine if they just eliminate certain parts of their thought process, right?
Yes.
Yeah, love it. My friend, thank you so much. What a pleasure. And I look forward to having you. You've been on one of my shows. Come on more. I got so many coming your way. Love to have you.
Sounds good. I would love to be on it. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everybody. God bless. Enjoy.